Welcome to Daily News Simplified, an answer to what, why, and how of newspaper reading. Today, we are going to discuss the Hindu newspaper dated 18th April 2018. Let's discuss. The first news appears on page number 1 and also appears as a continuation on page number 10. The news reads, Law Commission favors simultaneous elections. In this news, a draft white paper has been released by the Law Commission of India, where it recommends to hold simultaneous elections to the Lok Sabha as well as State Legislative Assembly, possibly in the year 2019. However, the Law Commission also suggests that to achieve the idea of simultaneous elections in India, the following needs to be amended. Certain provision of Constitution of India, Representation of People Act 1951, and Rules of Procedure of Lok Sabha as well as State Legislative Assemblies. So this becomes an important piece of information with respect to your prelims examination, as statement based question may be asked that to hold simultaneous election in India, which of the following needs to be amended? Two of these options or all these options may be provided. Since this issue of simultaneous election has going on for around some time, hence this question based on simultaneous election can be asked in a statement based question. In this, the Law Commission, while making its recommendation, also referred to the working paper of Niti Aayog on simultaneous elections. Similarly, a standing committee on personnel, public grievance, law and justice was also formed. Both the Niti Aayog and the standing committee suggested for simultaneous election in two phases. The Niti Aayog, particularly in its 3 years action agenda, has suggested that all election in India should happen in a free, fair and synchronized manner, so as to cause minimum campaign mode disruption to governance. In this, the Niti Aayog, in order to conduct a free, fair and synchronized election, has suggested to move towards synchronized two-phase election to the Lok Sabha. This would require a maximum one-time curtailment or extension of some state assemblies. Taking the cue from Niti Aayog's suggestion, even the white paper by Law Commission has suggested to conduct election in two phases. In the first phase, so for such states whose elections are due around Lok Sabha can be conducted together with the Lok Sabha of 2019. And similarly, in the second phase, rest of the states can go to elections in proximity with the Lok Sabha of 2024. So in this way, in two phases, that is in 2019 and in 2024, we will be able to achieve some sort of synchronicity with respect to simultaneous elections. Now let us also understand what are the other suggestions made by the Law Commission with respect to holding simultaneous. In one of the major changes, it suggests that if any particular party, group of party, brings a no confidence motion, and if such no confidence motion is passed on the floor of the House, it means passing of the no confidence would amount to dissolution of the current Lok Sabha. Then, in such a case, such party or group of parties which are bringing this no confidence motion should also suggest an alternative to form the government. In other words, we can say a no confidence motion must be followed by a confidence motion, so as not to disrupt the proceeding of the House. The other suggestions which the Commission makes is to relax the provisions of anti-defection law as prescribed under the 10th schedule of the Indian Constitution, so as to prevent a stalemate in Lok Sabha or State Legislative Assembly in case of hung parliament or a hung assembly. This would work effectively for a coalition government. Suppose if 5 or 10 members of a coalition government defects as per anti-defection law, then the majority on the floor of the House may be disturbed. And if any government or any coalition government falls short of majority, then definitely it has to resign. In such a case, it leads to the fall of government. So seeing such situation, the Law Commission has suggested to relax certain provisions of anti-defection law. The next suggestion made by Law Commission is that for mid-term elections, for both Lok Sabha as well as State Legislative Assembly, the government coming to power shall serve only for the remaining period. It means, suppose if a government has been dissolved and a mid-term election has been called after 3 years, then the incoming government shall hold office only for a period of 2 years. The Commission has further suggested that the amendments as proposed earlier in the Constitution of India, Representation of People Act as well as Rules of Procedure must be in the form of constitutional amendment, which shall be ratified by all the states so as to avoid any constitutional challenge. It's interesting to know that this suggestion specifically relating to ratified by all the states as of now does not prevail in the Constitution. As far as entrenched provisions are concerned or those provisions which may affect the basic structure of the constitution. The amendment required is absolute majority, that is majority of total membership of the house, plus two-thirds of the members present and voting, and along with it, it must be ratified by more than 50% of the states in India. This is the provision which appears as of now in Article 368. However, here if you read, these amendments proposed must be in the form of constitutional amendment which must be ratified by all the states. This again is a different step from what is currently provided in the constitution. Thus, in a way, a major amendment is also proposed in the process of amendment itself. And further, the Prime Minister or the Chief Minister shall be an elected person. As per the current constitutional law, the Prime Minister can either be a member of Lok Sabha or can be a member of Raj Sabha. Even if he is not a member of Lok Sabha or Raj Sabha during the time of his appointment as a Prime Minister, then he must become members of one of the house within 6 months. Similarly, for Chief Minister, he has to be a member of State Legislative Assembly, or in such states where there is a council, then State Legislative Council. And even if a Chief Minister is appointed and at that point of time he is not a member of either the State Legislative Assembly or the State Legislative Council, then he should be elected within 6 months as either member of the house. Thus, this is the current situation which currently prevails, and it also becomes one of the important point from your prelims point of view, as specific questions have been asked with respect to the post of Prime Minister. Thus, this is a major change from what currently has been provided in the Constitution itself. So you see, there are various amendments which has to be brought into if these particular suggestions are to be incorporated in. So this topic becomes important from your prelims point of view as well. As we have seen various important issues in this particular news with respect to the various amendments which need to be proposed as per the recommendation of Law Commission, and the conduct of simultaneous election in 2 phases. That is, the first phase in 2019 where different states are due for their election, and the other phase in 2024. And also other things which have been suggested are that the Prime Minister and the Chief Minister shall be an elected person, relaxation of rigors of anti-defection law. If a government comes after mid-term election, then it shall remain in power for the remaining period. And these amendments must be approved or ratified by all the states so as to avoid any constitutional challenge. Thus, this topic becomes very important with respect to your polity and governance section of UPSC. With this, let's move on to the next news. The next news appears on page number 7. It reads, Aadhaar leak may sway polls, fears the Supreme Court of India. Now this issue of Aadhaar, which is pending in the Supreme Court of India, and where different issues associated with Aadhaar have been clubbed together, is being argued upon. So this topic of Aadhaar and certain issues associated with Aadhaar, as well as recent features added in the Aadhaar provisions, becomes important with respect to our prelims examination. Let's see some of the questions which can be found with respect to Aadhaar. Consider this question. Which of the following can be associated with Aadhaar? Face authentication. Yes, we know that face authentication was recently in news, and Aadhaar has approved face authentication as another mode of Aadhaar authentication. Next, virtual ID. This was also very much in news, as with respect to data leak or misuse of Aadhaar details, the government came up with the concept of virtual Aadhaar ID, where a temporary number may be issued. Then UID token. Now in this option, you may get confused whether this was there or not. You must know that UID token was also very much in news recently. So in this particular question, all the 3 can be very much associated with Aadhaar. Let's move on to the next question with respect to Aadhaar. Consider the following statement. Face authentication shall be used in fusion mode only. So when you read a particular statement, please try to read the statement very carefully. It says face authentication shall be used in fusion mode only. Second, face authentication is a part of demographic information. Third, virtual ID is a 12-digit random number. And fourth, virtual ID is a permanent and irrevocable number. The question asked is, which of the statements given above are incorrect? So here also you must be very careful while reading whether they have asked you a correct provision or an incorrect provision. So coming back to the question, we know face authentication shall be used in fusion mode only. We'll come back to this particular question after going through these recent developments in Aadhaar. This face authentication is based on the technology that recognizes face based on spatial geometry. And as per UIDAI, face authentication shall be allowed only in fusion mode. This fusion mode means that this face authentication shall be allowed along with one or more authentication factor. And this fusion mode means that it will be combined with other proof of authentication such as fingerprint or iris scan. And in this regard, UIDAI has further clarified that face authentication shall be done only where it will be needed. This face authentication shall help those who face difficulty during authentication process or getting their either fingerprint scanned or iris scanned either due to any injury or due to issues of old age or manual labor. Thus, face authentication provides as an additional factor apart from the one provided under biometric information. Other important information about face authentication is that it shall become part of biometric information. Now let us understand certain key points about virtual ID. In this regard, it is important to know that virtual ID or VID shall be a temporary and revocable 16-digit random number which shall be mapped with the original Aadhaar number to be used by Aadhaar holders for authentication purpose. At a particular point of time, there shall be only one active and valid VID, and all authorized agencies have to mandatorily migrate to the new system by 1st June 2018. So these are some of the important information with respect to virtual ID. Let us also understand about UID token. UID token shall be a 72-digit alphanumeric code. UID token allows an agency to ensure uniqueness of its beneficiaries or customers without having to store Aadhaar number in their database. Thus, these are some of the important points which you should be knowing about UID token. That it is a 72-digit alphanumeric code and allows agency to ensure uniqueness of its beneficiaries without having to store their Aadhaar number. With respect to Aadhaar number, I am sure you must be knowing that it is a 12-digit number. Now with respect to Aadhaar, let us also revise certain basic points with respect to biometric information and demographic information. As you know that the Aadhaar Act was passed as a money bill in the Lok Sabha. Hence, the word Consolidated Fund of India has been added in its aims and objectives. It says an act to provide for good governance, efficient, transparent and targeted delivery of subsidies, benefits and services, the expenditure of which is incurred from the Consolidated Fund of India. As we mentioned, here you can see biometric information, which means photograph, fingerprint, iris scan or such other biological attributes. It was because of this insertion in the section such other biological attributes that face authentication was added as another mode of Aadhaar authentication. Similarly, demographic information includes information relating to name, date of birth, address and other relevant information of an individual. So, in future, a government may also add other provisions with respect to demographic information. It is also important to know that there are certain other information which are not part of demographic information, such as race, religion, caste, tribe, ethnicity, language, records of entitlement, income or medical history. Thus, these becomes important from a pre-point of view. Another important information with respect to Aadhaar is that you must be knowing that the linking of Aadhaar was very much in news. So in this respect, it is still mandatory for those who are availing certain subsidies, benefits or services by the government and whose receipts becomes part of Consolidated Fund of India, or these subsidies, benefits of services, if they are taken from Consolidated Fund of India, then in such cases, those people availing such subsidies, benefits or services must furnish proof of possession of Aadhaar number. Thus, this particular topic becomes important because it was in respect of this that this bill was passed as a money bill. Hence, we have seen important issues pertaining to Aadhaar. So coming back to this particular question, face authentication shall be used in fusion mode only. This is correct. face authentication is a part of demographic information. No, this is incorrect. Second, virtual ID is a 12-digit random number. No, we have seen virtual ID is a 16-digit random number. Virtual ID is a permanent and irrevocable number. No, it is not permanent. It is temporary and can be revoked. So the question asked was, which of the statements given above are incorrect? So we know that 2, 3 and 4 are incorrect. Hence, the correct answer would be C in this case. So any question can be asked with respect to Aadhaar, as you know, various issues associated with Aadhaar is still going on or pending before the Honorable Supreme Court of India. With this, I hope you have understood various issues associated with Aadhaar and the latest additions in Aadhaar. With this, let's move on to the next news. The next news appears on page number 8 in the editorial section. The news reads, Clamour for death. This news is with respect to the growing anger against the rape incidents recently occurred. This news also mentions about J.S. Verma Committee report. So from a prelims perspective, this particular committee report becomes important. This particular committee was constituted in December 2012 in the wake of Nirbhaya rape case to look into the possible amendments of criminal law and also to provide for quicker trial and enhanced punishment for criminals committing sexual assault of extreme nature against women. Now this particular committee made recommendations on laws related to rape, sexual harassment, trafficking, child sexual abuse, medical examination of victims, electoral reforms, police reforms, education and perception reforms, gender justice and acid attack. So you must remember that this particular committee submitted report on these particular issues. It was because of the recommendation of J.S. Verma Committee that amendments were made in the provisions of Indian Penal Code. And specifically these sections, that is 376A, 376B, 376D and 376E were added. 376A is about punishment for causing death or resulting in persistent vegetative state of victim. 376B pertains to sexual intercourse by husband upon his wife during separation. 376C about sexual intercourse by a person in authority. 376D pertains to gang rape and 376E pertains to punishment for repeat offenders. Thus, these were the changes which were brought about after submission of J.S. Verma Committee report, and this become important to understand from a prelims point of view. Now consider this particular question. Consider the following statements with respect to recommendations given by J.S. Verma Committee. It was constituted to look into possible amendments in criminal law to provide for quicker trial and enhanced punishment. After going through this particular news, we know that this statement is correct. Second, it also recommended on gender justice and police reforms. As you can see, all these pertains to gender justice as well as police reform was also one on the recommendations of this committee report. So the second statement is also correct. Third, amendments were made in the rape laws of India on the committee's recommendations. Now, as we have already discussed, that amendments were made in the Indian Penal Code and sections such as 76A to E were added after the report submitted by J.S. Verma Committee. So in this particular, which of the statements given above are true? The correct answer would be all of them, that is 1, 2 and 3. So in this particular news, this particular J.S. Verma Committee reports becomes important from your prelims point of view. With this, let's move on to the next news. Now the next news appears on page number 13. It reads, India expected to grow at 7.4% in 2018. In this news, according to IMF's World Economic Outlook, India is expected to grow at 7.4% in 2018 and 7.8% in 2019. Now, we mentioned this word, IMF's World Economic Outlook. As you can see, various questions have already been appeared in the previous UPSC papers. In 2016, a question was asked on Global Financial Stability Report. In 2016, there was another question with respect to India's Ease of Doing Business Index. And in the year 2017, a question also appeared on Global Gender Gap Index. So we see that UPSC have been asking questions on certain reports prepared by certain international institutions. First of all, let us go through the news and then we'll come back to these questions asked in UPSC examinations. So as we have seen, as per World Economic Outlook, India is expected to grow at 7.4% in 2018 and 7.8% in 2019. While growth fell sharply in the previous fiscal year due to one-off factors like demonetization and GST, it is expected to improve this year. According to IMF, India has made progress on structural reforms, including implementation of GST, which will help in reducing internal barriers to trade, increase efficiency, and improve tax compliance. However, there are certain key challenging areas which needs to be addressed, such as enhancing inclusiveness, fiscal consolidation to improve fiscal policy credibility, lifting constraints on job creation, ease labor market rigidities, reduce infrastructure bottlenecks, and improve educational outcomes. Thus, these become important key challenging areas, and statement based questions may be asked with respect to enhancing growth in India. Coming back to the answers to these particular questions, the question asked in 2016, India's ranking in ease of doing business index is sometimes seen in the news. Which of the following has declared the ranking? We know that the correct answer is World Bank. Next, again asked in 2016, Global Financial Stability Report is prepared by. The correct answer is International Monetary Fund, that is IMF. And the question asked in 2017 on gender equality, that is, which of the following gives Global Gender Gap Index ranking to the countries of the world? The correct answer is World Economic Forum, that is WEF. So we see that UPSC has been asking these questions based on reports made by various international institutions. Hence, World Economic Outlook becomes important with respect to prelims 2018, as we know that it is prepared by IMF, that is International Monetary Fund. With this, let's move on to the next news. The next news also appears on page number 13. It says Bharat 22 ETF, that is Exchange Traded Fund, may I 10,000 crore rupees. So this news with respect to Bharat 22 ETF becomes important from a prelims examination. Let's see certain basic facts about this Bharat 22 ETF. Now, to understand Bharat 22, let us also understand about ETF, that is Exchange Traded Funds. Exchange Traded Funds or ETF is a marketable security that tracks and index a commodity, bonds or basket of assets like an index fund. Now these funds are traded like common stocks on the stock exchange. Now let us understand about Bharat 22 ETF. The main objective of Bharat 22 ETF is to mobilize funds through selling of these exchange traded funds and thus to meet the disinvestment target. Bharat 22 is the second ETF issued by the government for supporting the disinvestment program. It comprises of 22 stocks of both PSUs, that is public sector undertakings, as well as private enterprises, including specified undertaking of Unit Trust of India, Central Public Sector Enterprises ETF, and PSU banks. As we mentioned here that Bharat 22 is the second ETF issued by the government. In this case, the first endeavor was CPSE ETF, that is Central Public Sector Enterprises ETF, that was issued in March 2014. So this new endeavor by the central government becomes important with respect to your prelims examination, as specific objectives of Bharat 22 ETF may be asked. And you must know that the basic objective is to selling these ETF to meet the disinvestment target. And this is the second ETF issued by the government for supporting disinvestment program. And this ETF, Bharat 22, basically the word 22 comprises of 22 stocks of both PSUs and private enterprises, and also includes specified undertaking of Unit Trust of India, that is SUTI, PSU banks, and CPSE ETF, that is Central Public Sector Enterprises. So this topic becomes very important from the economy section. With this, let's move on to the next news. Now we move to page number 8. Here the news reads, the new South Asia. China leverage increases. New Delhi has to reimagine its terms of engagement with neighbours. In this, India's neighbourhood policy of late has come under scrutiny. Thus, India needs to form new terms of engagement with neighbours as relations have downgraded from 2014 onwards. As we can see, in Sri Lanka, domestic political developments are impacting India, whereas in Maldives, India has been seeing diminishing of its hold And it can be seen that Maldives is slowly drifting towards China. Similarly, in Nepal, coming into power of KP Oli has posed another challenge for India. Thus, India needs to engage with Nepal despite political challenges. In Seychelles, India is still struggling to conclude pact to build military facility. This is important for India so as to balance the growing clout of China in the Indian Ocean region. Thus, post independent India has never encountered anything like China, and its challenges on various fronts and its growing clout in surrounding region and neighborhood of India is posing challenging questions to India's interest. And these challenges for India are on multiple fronts. As we can see, China's entry in the South Asian region has opened new avenues for smaller countries. For the smaller countries, it provides them for alternatives. Thus, it is in this respect that BIMSTEC of late is gaining currency in the Indian policy making. As we know that BIMSTEC stands for Bay of Bengal Multi-Sectoral Technical and Economic Cooperation. BIMSTEC will also allow India to tie up with other South Asian countries and will also help India to nurture tie-ups with these South Asian countries. However, certain structural problem still remains for India. India's structural dominance of South Asian market makes the neighboring country suspicious and natural target of resentment. India's big brotherly attitude displayed in affecting or impacting domestic politics of surrounding countries increase growing suspicion and fuels anti-India resentment. And also, growing rise of China in a way has limited India's ability to impact other countries with its decision making. Thus, in these challenging times, India needs to restructure its strategic geography and also evolve new terms of agreement and new ways of engagement with its neighboring countries, which is in sync with the current realities of our modern times. Thus, this news with respect to India's restructure of its strategic geography and to evolve new terms of agreement and new ways of engagement with its neighboring countries with respect to growing clout of China becomes important news with respect to international relations for UPSC. With this, we come to an end to today's newspaper discussion. Let's move on to the question for the day.